Hello everyone, this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 28th of December 2025, and this is where we share the posts shared on Autistic Radio Facebook page and the topics within them. And the first post is from Jordan James, the autistic photographer, described as a public figure. I am autistic, ADHD, dyslexic and generally neurodivergent photographer, parent, husband, advocate, ND specialist, author and host of the Neurodivergent Experience podcast. And what Jordan has shared is the following. The real me. When people tell me they like me, I automatically question why. I don't think, that's nice, someone likes me. I wonder what version of me they like. Because, in my head, there are so many versions I've presented to the world, I forget which one is the camouflage and which is the real me. Perhaps it's more that the camouflage I presented has now become part of me. So what is the act and what is the real me? Maybe there isn't a real me. Maybe whatever version I choose to share with someone is the real me, when I am that person. So I'm multiple people to multiple people. Maybe to one person I'm witty and charming, to another I'm cold and distant, to another I'm rude and overly opinionated, to another I'm intelligent and well-mannered. I think it's very human to have many faces, especially when navigating professional environments and people. I believe the difference for me as a neurodivergent person is that every day I'm attempting to be a version of me that will fit in, mostly due to a chronic fear of rejection and past ostracisation. It is like doing a show without ever having a break, unless I'm at home, by myself, and lost in a video game story. But then again, even this is being someone else completely, so who knows if I'll ever know the real me. What I do know is I have lots of family and friends who love me, and whatever version of me they love. I need to accept that their love is unquestionable, and I need to accept it. Perhaps being a late discovered neurodivergent adult just means never knowing who I would have been if I'd learned to love myself earlier, and learning to love who I am now, whatever version of me, that is the only way I'll ever be truly happy. On this page, I've always tried to be as honest and real as possible, but even here, I've had to camouflage myself due to the toxic nature of social media. I'm as real as I can be without harming my mental health.
Wow, Harry. I think it's this time of year, isn't it? Somebody's put it all together about how they're feeling at the moment. I just want to say the one thing, and it's about the toxic social media world. I don't take part in that, except when you show me this safe page that you arrange for us here at Autistic Radio. My communication with other people doesn't have trolls in it. It has people who I meet up with, you, my colleagues here, and other people that pop in, and that feels like a safe alternative space away from social media to be myself, unmasked pretty much. Different versions of myself maybe, but comfortable with them. So that's where I find expression of my identity here.
Robbie says in the text, the only time I am the real me is when I don't have to mask. I think it is also about accepting not everyone will like me.
I really love what this man said, and it made me think of something. Sometimes if suddenly I'm introducing two people, but they're from two different environments, I get super overwhelmed. And maybe it is because if one was from a professional setting and the other was from a personal setting, it's like the masks are colliding and I'm tongue-tied and awkward and people are like, what the heck is going on with you? Or at least I imagine they are.
It's like self-reflection because it's coming to the end of the year and beginning of a new one. And it's things that we kind of touched on before, is the masking thing, or performance, game playing, whatever you want to call it, depending on the environment you're in and the people you're talking to. You know, I act completely different to being here, to when I'm with my family, to when I'm with certain friends. Even different friends that I'm with is always a slightly different way of talking and behaving, etc. Even here. The way I speak on here is slower and more clearer than it would be if I was speaking in normal conversation. Because in my head, while I'm speaking, while I'm performing, you know, for the podcast, as well as being understood by other people, especially other people with different accents as well, is to make sure I'm clear enough and it's slowed down. And then that's like, well, that's not real me. But then again, it is real me because it's me that's doing it. And I'm doing it because I choose to do it. And I choose to do other things that I do. Performance, the masking, whatever you want to call it, camouflaging, as was said in the post. It's by choice. And the choice is done by the reasoning of why I would do it in certain environments, to keep myself safe and to keep things comfortable for everyone else as well.
I feel like if you got really meta about the versions of yourself or the masks, for good or for bad, or masks you were forced into somehow for a profession or your parents or something, it could lead to paranoia.
The idea of a consistent self may be a myth. That self is very adaptable and formed by, circumstances. Even here in this environment, the theme of a discussion perhaps, or the subjects that are brought up, can sometimes change how I might act or might express myself. Like I almost have to get into the mindset of it. So I'm reacting to what I'm hearing and what people are saying. We all do this thing. And so the self is very fluid. And to your point, Teresa, be meta about it, that is it. Whatever filter you use to express yourself, it'll be an expression. And that's quite fluid. It's not predictable, it's not static.
That said, though, when you're alone and by yourself has been brought up, and that has changed for me since I learned that I am autistic. I am going back to the me before I was 6 years old when I'm alone. I'm not going to be someone else. I just want to appreciate my unmasked self, who I just feel I'm being reintroduced to.
I would just say to that the interpretation we have of our past selves from the self we have now, very structured.
What Robbie's added in the text is, I avoid places where I'm expected to mask. And Robbie's mentioned this many times before, as if he has to mask, has to change who he is, he feels it's not worth the effort to be in that environment. And that's me taken from the text that's been shared and also discussion and experiences that Robbie shared in the past. The next post is from NDWise Hub, who's a business consultant, AUDHD advocate, parent, article writer and resource creator focused on safety, communication and agency in ways that honour neurodivergent experiences, based in the UK. And they've shared the following. I've just finished reading the book But We're a Little Autistic, Aren't We? A book by Emma Delmain. Emma writes from lived experience and that grounding matters. Her voice is open and honest, offering practical guidance without being prescriptive or pushy. She wears her heart on her sleeve and it shows. The book is personal, vulnerable, and deeply relatable. It's also accessible, easy to follow, clear and written in a way that supports understanding rather than overwhelm. What stood out most was the call to action woven throughout. There's a clear reminder that lived experience must be listened to, and that we have a responsibility to protect and advocate for those who cannot yet do so themselves. Autistic children grow into autistic adults, and how we show up for them now matters.
Is this about authenticity? It reminds me of what Robbie was saying about listening to the experiences of the autistic person.
I especially like the call to action. I was worried when there was a call to action, the call to action of how to be advocates and listen to young autistic people. If you find one in your life, I think we are the best people to listen to them.
I totally agree. There's a lot of talk about, and rightly so, about learning from others with experience in terms of people that are older, and how experience that way can be shared and it can provide valuable information, great stories, and a sense of, linking up with people. And the reverse is the same in terms of age, that younger autistic people can talk about their experiences of them growing up and how things have maybe progressed or been a little bit different. And then it can be a sort of link in between the two, because we can all learn from each other, not just about autism, but, basically a lot of things, everything. I want to kind of make it universal. So it's nice that things like this can come together and basically demonstrate that there's always something new to learn, and there's always something new progressively to learn. And as Robbie says in the text, they need to listen to those with lived experience. And that needs to be repeated time and time again.
There is a difficulty there, though, isn't there? Because if we're looking for the people that are understanding their autism from a neurodivergent perspective, they're the adult. They're the people who have possibly the younger generation of experience, the concepts, and now they're adults. How do they then speak back? Most generations are separated into silos. How does somebody who is an autistic elder have relevance for the younger generation? If we're to protect this younger generation, how do we do it?
I would layer on to that not just the silos of the age groups, which I suppose we could learn about somehow, how there are silos that are identified, and I'm not sure why, millennials and whatever, but also their cultural experiences. So in different places, I feel they may be experiencing it differently, if that makes any sense. So the culture or the place that they're in too could be layered on.
Yeah, there's people in the text saying about meeting him halfway. We were all children once, have a common tongue. There does appear to be, by many people, autistic people included, the generation sort of competition where one generation has suffered more, so has more standing to the ones that apparently have had it more easier. That seems to be a lot in conversation, but a lot in social media, which does become a poisoned kind of chalice in many ways, for competition and rage bait and all that. So it's breaking through that, and conversations won't always be easy, but it certainly can be done, because certainly in my position, being middle-aged, it'd be great to learn from younger people in comparison to what their experience is as being, for instance, autistic children and adolescents in comparison to mine. I was an adolescent 26 years ago, so bang, it's only 28. So it's such a long gap, so it's just, because the thing you definitely want to feel, or I definitely want to feel, is the progress is being made. Sometimes there's not progress being made, it's just things are happening in a different way, but not always in a good way. Especially with the technology and advancements that we've had, doesn't mean things are always good, but there's certainly potential for things to be progressive.
I think I saw it in action at Christmas when the room got overwhelming and my daughter gently said to the room, or to her brother who happened to be near the lamp, There's a lot of sensory input in here right now. Do you think you could turn that lamp off? It sounds simple, but I don't feel like somebody in my generation would have said that.
Yeah, it's like exposure saying that.
I would have been 23 years ago now when we moved from one office to a renovated building, and the lights were just too much. And this is 12 or 13 years before my diagnosis. And I did have the tubes taken out above my desk. And then in another job a few years later, I had the light tube taken out above my desk.
I was in a workplace where, because it was the department in a newspaper where we were building the internet version of the newspaper, there were a lot of neurodivergent people, and I don't think we knew it about ourselves or people necessarily knew it, but I feel like it was highly tolerated because the employers knew they had to keep us. And a man sitting next to me kept on putting in these requisition orders to get the fluorescent bulb above his desk taken out, but it never would happen. And so one day, like a hero, like a Norma Ray, he stood on his desk and took it out, like you, GR. And then there was another guy like that who sat near this, I think, the northwest corner of the open space. And he sent an email to all, because back then you didn't know you shouldn't send it to the entire company, about how every day at approximately 3:31, which is a correct way of saying it because tomorrow it will be a different time, the sun pierced him in the eye. And I have never forgotten that.
The next post is from the Actually Autistic Coach, who's a personal coach. I empower my fellow autistic people by working to uncover and unmask revealing our best selves. And they've shared the following. Autistic futurism isn't about including us in the future. It's about imagining futures that only make sense because autistic people are in them. Different rhythms, different values, different ways of knowing, not cured, not managed, not normalised, alive, truly alive, on our terms.
A lot of the posts here, Harry, seem to be relating to identity.
Or identifying. This list can only include the person who wrote the list. And the list before was made by a bureaucracy.
The problem is, to be included, we actually have to be included in decisions. What representation do we actually have in government that make all decisions?
Well, we might in the future, so don't give up hope. The first thing we would do is burn all of these terms.
I was going to say, if I'm being fair, people who post like this are actually attempting something. They're trying to do something for themselves, and they want to include us in it. Their use of the word us is maybe, a bit careless. But anyway, everything there, you can kind of identify with a lot of the words. But I think this is like a reaching out. This is like a, here I am, I'm saying this, respond. You see what I mean?
I think Ray's right. He's putting his list together more to start a conversation.
Yeah, I don't think this person's actually a professional coach employed in that sense. They haven't indicated that or stated that. I think it's when we mask, we take on roles, and one of them, if you're going to be an activist or advocate in the neurodivergent paradigm, you sort of like maybe want to be a coach.
I find the whole thing confusing, okay? I can't imagine a future that doesn't have autistic people, because autistic people, for me, have historically been an intrinsic part of the way society works. Autistic people have been the thread throughout humans' development. Without us, we don't have enough diversity in society to have progress in society. We need a wide group of people for progress to happen, for choices to be made from a wide selection of things. And you need neurodivergent people in that whole mix. Equally, I would say that perhaps the proportion of neurodiverse people, we need them too. That's how society historically has been created. What's happening now is that there's an understanding that there are these classifications or different types of human beings that are closer to races than we've ever had races. You know, black skins and culture and different stances and bone structures and facial types aren't as much differences really as autism from the rest of the population.
Don't you feel these identities already look dated? I've got this feeling that we've been through a decade of identity politics, and it's on the wane now. Hopefully, we get a kind of inclusivity, but we might not. I think what this guy is sort of unconsciously fearing is maybe a process of normalisation where that's maybe the explanation for how he feels that autism might not exist in the future.
Oh, I actually read his list a little differently. If you put little diagrams with it, it's sort of like that list where somebody's becoming a man from, I don't know what, like a Neanderthal or whatever. But this one looks like freedoms at the end on our own terms. So I think it's more positive than we thought.
I think he's kicking back against this inclusion idea that's going around in white saviour. They've changed tolerance to inclusion. It's still basically the same attitudes with a little bit of a shove in a slightly different direction emotion. Or they are pointing out that the current inclusion is not enough. Needs to be is a full integration and equality. But my understanding of history is that the autistic characters have either been unequal by being emperors and kings and captains of industry on one end, or by being in the other end amongst the most underprivileged group. It feels to me as though human beings are not that changeable in their basic nature and need for structure of society as we go forward.
I think basically all these things happen in law, but not actually in practice, because there's plenty of laws that are saying about inclusion, but they're not properly practiced. The Care Act says about supporting me to live the life that I want, but it doesn't happen in practice.
Yeah, I don't think the current concept of inclusion is actually inclusion, or to be more accurate, inclusive.
I like the different ways of knowing. This list, the person who wrote it possibly thinks is futurism, but I'm looking at it as something that happened in places in the world at a point in time in history when people were not fussed. They just knew instinctively that a person was this way and made room for them.
The next post is from Blue Sky Learning. We're a mental health service. We support neurodivergent individuals globally with coaching, counselling and consulting services based in Canada. And they've shared the following. Something called medical overshadowing. And they've shared a presentation. Medical overshadowing is often misunderstood, especially for neurodivergent individuals, people with chronic illness, or marginalised patients navigating healthcare systems. Common ways medical overshadowing shows up include physical symptoms repeatedly explained away as just anxiety or just stress, new or worsening symptoms minimised or ignored, feeling unheard, dismissed or belittled during appointments. Recommendations focus solely on mental health without addressing the symptom itself. Providers relying on assumptions about neurodivergence, chronic illness or gender. Delayed diagnosis or treatment due to bias or misunderstanding. Increased anxiety, frustration or self-doubt about your body's signals. And reduced trust in healthcare providers or the medical system. These experiences aren't a reflection of exaggeration, weakness or poor communication. They reflect systematic bias, gaps in provider training and misunderstanding of neurodivergent or chronically ill bodies. At Blue Sky Learning, neurodiversity affirming therapists and coaches help you recognise medical overshadowing validate your experiences, and develop strategies to advocate for thorough, personalised care. Together, we can shift from the maybe I'm overacting to I deserve to be seen, heard, and cared for. It talks about this free 20-minute consultation and other services.
Well, I don't mean to be pessimistic again, but I do live in Canada, where we do have public health care, but this organization will not be included because there's a 20-minute free consultation or whatever it said. My question would be, would they come with you to all of the other appointments? No, I don't think so. So all of this might be true, but it's just a hook to get you to come to their counseling. I'm sorry if I'm being completely negative, but it really does feel like that, and it's going to be expensive.
Yeah, I understand that thought, and that's exactly what it is doing, in my opinion as well. But what it's also doing is raising issue and providing information in instances that we've talked about before. What the list is doing is, in my mind, it's providing examples of how people are treated. Because I know what it's like to be treated as neurodivergent in the National Health Service in the UK and Scotland, and feeling that you may not be taken as seriously as you should be. And not just that, but feeling the lacking confidence of the communication to actually give to a doctor, a GP, who can only see you for 10 to 15 minutes, and feeling under pressure to script things and write things down to make sure that the right process is made and the right care is administered. And that's just thinking of self. And I've been in many situations where I felt there was something wrong and I felt it could be serious. And even though it turns out not to be as bad as it was, it's just that sort of apprehension of having to explain how I feel, because they can only go by what you tell them. It was just such a rehearsal. And when you're stressed out already and you're feeling ill already, it just doesn't feel helpful. I know the world isn't a simple place, but that's how it relates to me.
I really hear that, Harry. And I understand why all of these different posts that you shared today have relevance to what we're doing here. I also agree with what Teresa's saying, and I feel cynical like her. This is a huge medical company that has a lot of staff. They have a program, and their program is to make their staff neuroaffirming. So it's a corporate structure, and they're using all of this wonderful wording that we are now ironically piggybacking on to bring up the feelings and such like. They have got that as part of their slick selling machine right up front. None of us know the reality behind this, and none of us have really defined what neuroaffirming therapy is. What we know is that this is a company that pays its executives well and its therapists well, and we are the people who pay for it.
You know, it would be great if the training and learning they provided was given to the people, the healthcare professionals, or the government, people who make decisions about care, which is similar in Canada to the UK. You see, because I guess that's a marketing thing to put that list together and to say all these things that are true, and we read them and we identify with them and they think, yeah. But I don't think I want to go and be paying for them to teach me how to deal with this. I think it would be much more powerful if the organizations paid to put the providers through this training.
The only useful support I've had mental health wise is when I paid for it. Everything else I've had for the mental health service has been crap, harmful, and really damaged me. So I'm happy to pay for support, because when it comes down to it, whoever pays the piper pulls the tune. And anything I've had on the NHS has been crap.
Yeah, I agree with you, but maybe this is like a pipe dream or something, but I'm thinking if we want a difference in the things that are really frustrating and challenging, what if they were training the people who are meant to be helping us?
Nothing government-wise is any good because all they're interested in is pushing people into work. I've lived with the mental health service goings on, and all my life I've been involved with the mental health service since 11. They have one goal: make you compliant and push you into work. Very much the same goal as the schools have. And the only useful help has been I've paid for it.
Thanks, everyone. That was a good discussion tonight. And thanks for people who have shared these posts that have created discussion for tonight also. So this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 28th of December 2025, which is part of the Spectrum Voices conversation, which normally is every Sunday 5:55 PM to 7 PM UK time.